Tonight, millions of renters across the nation can breathe a sigh of relief, at least for now. Under a White House executive order, the CDC has placed a nationwide moratorium on coronavirus-related evictions through the end of the year.
But some are calling it a half solution. CBN's Eric Phillips has been following the story. Eric, this move seems to have come at a pretty pivotal time.
Well, that's right, Jenna and John. To put it bluntly, the country was on the brink of an eviction tidal wave. Now with this move by the CDC, it keeps people in their homes for now, but it does not address the financial need.
Like so many others, 65-year-old Victoria Lambert lost her job when the pandemic hit. She receives Social Security, but it's not enough to pay the rent on the Philadelphia studio apartment where she and her son live.
But you get to a point in your life where you really don't want to have to keep asking people, what kind of woman am I? You know, can't even take care of my own family. Can't even take care of my own family, and it's only two of us.
Two of more than 30 million that were at risk as the safety net of COVID eviction moratoriums expired and courts reopened. But that was put on hold when, under a White House executive order, the CDC placed a nationwide moratorium on evictions caused by COVID-related job loss until the end of the year.
Housing is healthcare, and we will not be able to truly contain this pandemic if millions more people are becoming homeless.
Housing advocate Diane Yantel sees the CDC's move as a major step in the right direction, although she feels it's short of what really needs to happen.
What we most need the federal government to do is to implement a uniform moratorium on evictions for non-payment of rent for the duration of the pandemic. We need them to provide at least $100 billion in emergency rental assistance to keep those low-income renters stably housed. And we need at least $11 billion in funds for homeless shelter and service providers to keep people who are homeless safe and get them housed as quickly as possible.
Most pressing, the moratorium, which will keep tenants in their homes, has no mechanism for landlords to receive necessary payments.
We also don't want small business people who own most of the apartment buildings and single-family rentals in the country to go out of business. Because I also don't think we want a country where our rental property is all owned by hedge funds.
Yantel and Dworkin agree. A moratorium without any government assistance creates a financial cliff for renters and landlords, since they're getting no money now, plus people won't be able to pay rent owed when the moratorium ends. That solution needs to come from Congress, something Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin has underscored on Capitol Hill.
We did have bipartisan agreement about putting more money for rental assistance. Again, we may be differ on the amount. I would encourage both the House and the Senate. There are areas that we have overlap in agreement. Let's move forward for the basis of the American people and American workers and kids. Things that we can agree on, let's pass quickly.
Bottom line, the moratorium is a welcomed reprieve for people like Lambert, but the worry is not over.
You know, like a storm. Okay, the storm has got to end, right? We know that a snowstorm is it's got to stop snowing. It can't snow 365 days. So, okay, we know that. But we don't have a clue about when this is going to end.
And it's worth mentioning that this moratorium passed by the CDC is farther reaching than the one passed by Congress back in March as part of the CARES Act. That one applied to rental properties that were backed by federal loans. This one applies to all rental properties, irrespective of how they receive their funding, John and Jenna.
So, Eric, how does the CDC have the power to stop evictions?
A good question. A lot of people have been kind of wondering that. Well, the CDC has the authority under an act that was passed back in 1944 called the Public Health Services Act. And that gives the government broad powers to do whatever it needs to do to try to stem the spread of communicable diseases. So the idea is that if, in fact, you kick people out of their homes and they're either on the street in crowded shelters or in crowded living situations with family members, you're likely putting them in a situation for them to get sick and for others to